So on behalf, let me just put it this way. This is a joint meeting between, it's been called by the Standing Committee on the Premier, chaired by my colleague, Honourable Ricardo Mackenzie, and the Standing Committee on Local Government, which is chaired by myself. My name is Derek America, and allow me on behalf of my colleague to welcome you all present. So before I move to, taking, introducing the officials and tabling apologies, could I just get a sense of the members who are present, if they could simply just introduce themselves, and then we could take it from there.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning.
Wendy Philander, member of the Premier Committee. Good morning.
Honourable Marie, you are muted.
Honourable Chairman, thank you for reminding me. I'm Peter Marie, representing the Freedom Front Plus, and I'm a member of this Premier Committee.
Honourable van der Westhuizen, I see your hand is raised.
Good morning, Honourable Chairpersons and colleagues. My name is Andrikus van der Westhuizen, a member of the Local Government Standing Committee. Thank you.
Any other member?
Can we start with the chamber?
Any other member?
Good morning, Honourable Chairperson. This is Gillian Bosman, member of the Provincial Parliament.
Thank you, Honourable Bosman. Okay, colleagues.
Can we start with the chamber, Mr. America?
Yes, we will do so. Could those members who are in the chamber introduce themselves?
Thank you.
Morning, Chairperson.
Johan and
Good morning, Chair. Lorraine Botha.
Morning, Honourable Botha. Morning, Honourable Bartman.
Morning, Chairperson. Lulama Mvimbi.
Good morning, Honourable Mavimbi. Okay, are there any other further introductions of members? Okay. Now, this is a hybrid meeting. Some of our members and our chairperson of the Premier Committee is in chambers, and some of our members, Honourable Botha is there, and some of our members are online, the majority. May I just mention that the Minister and the Premier and the various HODs are unfortunately not able to join us today, and Honourable Mackenzie can speak on behalf of the Premier, but on behalf of Minister Bredell and the HOD, Mr. Paulser, they are in a MINMEC meeting and unfortunately are not able to join us.
Chairman, can I, point of order, are you saying Mr. Mackenzie is speaking on behalf of the Premier? Is he now the Deputy Premier?
Well, he can speak for himself, thank you. If there are any apologies, Johan, that you are aware of?
Chairperson, no, except for the Minister Bredell and the HOD for local government.
Honourable Mackenzie?
No apologies from my side, and just for the record, we did not invite the Premier.
So thank you, Honourable Mackenzie. From the Local Government Standing Committee, we know that Honourable Mthlodi Mseko is ill, and as a result of her illness, that she can't be present. So, she has tabled an apology as a result of her condition. So those are the apologies. So it gives me great pleasure to invite, to welcome the officials of the Independent Electoral Commission. That is Mr. Michael Hendrickse, who is the Provincial Electoral Office. It's our first meeting with Mr. Hendrickse, and also Ms. Langala. They are going to represent the IEC in this particular meeting, and they will introduce themselves further later when they will do their presentation. From Home Affairs, we have Mrs. Sigama, who's the Deputy Director General, Civic Services, and Ms. Michaels, who's the Acting Provincial Manager in the Western Cape. From the Department of Local Government, we have Ms. Barnard, who's the Chief Director, Municipal Performance and Monitoring and Support, and Ms. Kamal Makam, who's the Director of Municipal Governments. On behalf of the two committees, we welcome you, and I don't know if there's anything else that Honourable Mackenzie would like to welcome to the meeting.
No, thank you, Chair. We can continue.
Thank you. Colleagues, it's been months now since us meeting in this way, so members are at this stage fully conversant with the rules of engagement as far as virtual meetings are concerned. But allow me just to highlight just one thing, that if members or any participant, which is an official present on the meeting, would like to raise a matter, there's functionality on the platform to raise your hand and to alert the chairpersons about your intention to engage with us, whatever. We have technical assistance on standby for members should they, in this inclement weather, experience some technical difficulties. We are very much fortunate again to have Candace as well as Siraj on standby. And then we also have our procedural officers, in the form of Johan for municipal, for the Local Government Standing Committee. And I'm not so fully aware to who the procedural officer is for the Premier Committee, but they also on standby for any assistance that our members may require. So, colleagues, it is preferable if if you are speaking to the meeting in the form of presenting your sort of input, particularly that of the officials, the IEC and Mr. Sikama, and if any member who speaks on the platform, it is preferable, but it is not compulsory. You may switch on your camera. Many of us, particularly us and the invited guests onto the platform, it's the first time that we meet each other and engage with each other. So it is always good to, as an initial sort of stage, just to get a sense of the person or persons that we engage with. Unfortunately, colleagues, due to the limitation of resources in this instance, we do not have interpretation services, but it is, it is preferable if we could engage with each other in English. But should there be no option but to engage in any of the 3 official languages, we have colleagues that can certainly assist us with interpretation. So the way in which this morning's session will work, I will deal with the first session, and that is with the Independent Electoral Commission. I'll share the session. And after the second session that deals with the Department of Home Affairs, Honourable Mackenzie will deal that session and also deal with the resolutions that may emanate from our engagement, and also will do the closure of the meeting. So without much further ado, colleagues, I want to express my appreciation to the procedural officers for coordinating and the logistics of and putting this meeting together, and for that we're really grateful. This meeting emanated from a resolution taken by the Department of Standing Committee on Local Government, but it was expedited by the Standing Committee on the Premier in terms of us convening this meeting to get a sense and of where we are in preparation for the local government elections later this year. With that said, colleagues, I don't know if my esteemed colleague in the chamber, Honourable Mackenzie, would like to say anything before we start formally.
Yes, Chairperson, just 2 things. One is I actually prefer if people switch on the camera so we can see who we're talking to. And then the second point is we know that the invitation for this meeting went out before the announcement of the IEC on the appointment of former Deputy Justice Dikgang Moseneke. So we understand if the IEC is not prepared for that part, but would appreciate if Dr. Hendricks have the latest information on that, can share with us if he does. But if he does not, we would obviously be mindful that the announcement was made after we invited them. Thank you. Thank you,
Honourable Mackenzie. So with that, without much further ado, welcome, Mr. Hendricks. You are going to, you must just give us an indication as to how you wish to deal with it. Your presentation, we are pleased that you have sent it to us, as well as Mr. Sikala have sent his presentation to us. So but those 2 presentations were circulated amongst all the members. So if you're going to manipulate your screen yourself, you're most welcome to do that, or either Osima or Johan will assist you in that regard. Thank you, Mr. Hendricks, and welcome.
And good morning to all the members and also to all the officials. Thank you to the committee for the opportunity to brief the committee on this particular matter. I really appreciate my first engagement with the committee, and I'm sure it will not be my last. As members may know, I started here at the Provincial Electoral Office in February of this year. Chairperson, I would prefer, because I did send through, if one of your admin officers there can drive the presentation, and then I can just talk to it as we move along, Chair, if your officials are okay with that, in which case they can then put up the presentation. I'll appreciate it, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks, sir. I'm sure they're able to do so. Johan? That's it. Thank you. Here we go. Is it visible to all members?
Yes, thank you.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Hendrik, sir.
Unfortunately, okay, there it is now. Okay, I'm going to put, if you don't mind, can I put off my camera so that I just...
yes, yes. Please, you may do so.
Thank you very much. So yes, just with regard to what the presentation will cover on the contents page, and it will be a broad sort of presentation, given the fact that it's my first briefing to the committee. Obviously, as we get closer to the elections, etc., we'll be more specific on certain areas. So I'm asked members' indulgence in regard to that particular part of it. So just overall election planning dates, where we are, as members are aware, the Constitution sets that the term of the municipal councils is 5 years, and therefore the election must take place within 90 days. You can move on, Johan. According to our calculation, therefore, the elections must take place somewhere between the 4th of August and the 1st of November. If you can move the presentation along, please. So as members also know, the president has now announced the date of the 27th. However, that date is not proclaimed until such time as the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs actually proclaims that date. The date is not lawfully out there. In terms of our road, where we've come from, just very briefly, the MDB completed the municipal outer boundaries in 2018, then went through a process in 2019 till 2020 on the issue of, determination of the wards, and the final handover of the wards to the IEC by the MDB took place on the 1st of December in 2020. Based on that, we could start working because, as you know, from then onwards, we had to ensure that our voting districts are then aligned to the new ward boundaries. As it happens in most cases, and you'll see a number of our voting districts are in fact affected. In other words, given the size of a ward, it may now split one of our voting districts. We may even have to create a new voting district. So that process has been ongoing until March. We intend now going forward where we are now in May and June to do what we call targeted voter registration and communication. This is where you have those split VDs, where we now need to go and inform the voters in those affected areas of the fact that their voting district has now been affected, and it may then mean that they have to go and vote at a different voting station, or they may even fall into a different ward. So that particular process is ongoing, and we hope to do the field work in June of this year. Then also, as you'd be aware, we have announced as the IEC a general voter registration weekend. That's the 17th and 18th of July this year, where all our voting stations will be opened for members of the public to come and firstly either register for the first time, or if they need to update their details, if they've changed their address, they can also come to the registration weekend, and we'll do it there certainly. In terms of the general registration, our offices are open currently, where members of the public can also come and register or to update their particular details. Given where we are now, and based just on the announcement of the president, we foresee that candidate nominations will probably take place during the month of August to September, and then from September to November we have the whole electoral process unfolding, which would include a special voting 2 days of special voting prior to the elections, the fact that we have the elections, and then also then within 7 days we as the IEC have to then announce those particular elections. Very importantly, within 14 days after the elections, the local councils will have to have their first meeting where they appoint their local council reps to the district councils. So that is also something, and only then can you really say the elections is over and done with in terms of the election of councillors to the various councils across the country. Just briefly again, the issue of by-elections. In terms of the Structures Act, by-elections cannot be held if the vacancy arises within 6 months of when the election must be held. In other words, any vacancy that arises after the 1st of May and the MEC for local government has determined that the by-election must stand over. So there's two conditions. One, obviously, has now taken place. In other words, the time period. Any ward vacancy that arises now, the municipal manager will have to inform Minister Pradelle, who has to make that particular determination. It's not automatic. He may still, within his discretion, determine that he wants to have an election in a particular ward. So where we are now at the current situation, yesterday there was, on the 19th, by-elections were held across the country, but none were in the Western Cape. We have 4 by-elections for the 30th of June. That will be in wards 51 and 63 in the Cape Town Metro. Ward 51 is in the Langa area and 63 is around Plumstead, Ottery. We also have Ward 1 in Cedarburg, that is around Algeria area, and then Ward 2 in Swartwand, which is the Mauriceburg area. So those are the only 4 by-elections that we are due to have. Also, for members to note, and please again to encourage your constituents in those particular wards, we're opening up the voting stations in those 4 wards tomorrow and on Sunday for a registration of the voters in those particular wards only. So not general across the province, it's only in those 4 wards, but we are asking members to please encourage the public to come and register, or if not register, come and check your details. It's very important that the public come and check their details, especially the address that we have on the voters roll for them. Thank you very much. In terms of legislative amendments, currently the Electoral Laws Amendment Bill has been passed by both Houses of Parliament, and it is with the President for assent. We await that. Briefly, some of the issues that impacted in that legislative amendments. One is the registration levels of political parties. Currently, members may be aware a party can be registered at the national level. In other words, they can then contest all legislative elections, or a party can be registered only at the municipal level. What the new amendment does is now creates 3 levels. You can register at a national level, you can register at a provincial level, and then you can register at a metro or a district council level. Because what we found is in the past that in some cases you'll have a party that is registered only in a municipality, for a local municipality, but that municipality falls within a district council, and ballots are issued for the district council, and as you know, also representatives of local councils are appointed to serve on a district. So you'd have those 3 levels. Please note that if your party is currently only registered in a one municipal area, as part of the transition, such parties, a registration level will automatically be upgraded to district council level, just so we can make sure that we don't deal with any sort of discrepancies in terms of that. But that will be going forward. We're also providing for a slightly different voting procedure for voters without addresses. Members will know that the courts have indicated that we must ensure that the voters on the voters roll must have their addresses. But given the reality of our country and where we find ourselves, it is obvious so that some voters simply will not have a formal address. You just will not be able to find them. And in such a case, a procedure is allowed for those persons, notwithstanding the fact they don't have such an address, to still vote. If you are in the voting, if you're on the voters roll, you will be able to vote, and if you can show where you are ordinarily resident. In terms of the code of conduct, we've also clarifying the effective date for the electoral code of conduct. It is now clear that the code of conduct is effective as from the date of proclamation of the election until the date on which the election results is declared. So in that period is when the code of conduct will apply. The other particular area that members may also be aware of, there was a lot of debate on, is the balancing the right of privacy of personal information and the right of freedom of expression in the publication of the voters roll. In other words, to what extent and what is the extent of the personal information we have to provide, say, to political parties when you have the voters access that particular voters roll, and we've been liaising with the information regulator in terms of that. So we want to also limit that without obviously, or balancing that particular two rights, so that at the end of the day we also protect the personal information of the voter. We are also busy streamlining some of our candidate nomination process. Members of parties, especially at the national level, you will recall that we started this online candidate nomination process. It just facilitates the matter. It reduces the amount of paperwork and also ensures that we have much more accurate information. You know, when, for example, when candidate IDs are being captured, that we have the right ID number, etc. So, but that process is also being a bit streamlined a little bit more going forward, so that we can have a quicker turnaround time in terms of finalizing candidates list as well. Thank you. Can I then just move on to where we currently are in terms of the total seats that will be up within this election? And I've got a couple of asterisks there, members will notice. This was based on the proclamation determination by the minister on the number of seats per municipalities, and then the wards that have subsequently been determined. I just need to fix up one particular matter here for members on Overberg District Council. The number is actually 23. I made a mistake there because I've subsequently been able to verify the proclamation. It is the District Council of Overberg will have 23 councillors, of which 10 will be DC 40 and 13 will be local reps to the District Council. I've also, members must please note, and that's something which I want to just highlight now. In terms of the new or the draft amendment Municipal Structures Act, there's now a provision that says that a local council must consist of a minimum of 10 councillors. Previously it was lower than that. What that means is that Kannaland municipality that has 7, Laingsburg and also Prince Albert, they will need to get an extra ward and then plus 2 PR seats to take them up to the minimum of 10. That's why I've put down some asterisks. That process will also, or may, I'm not saying will, but may also impact on the size of the district councils in which that municipalities then, because obviously you have extra councillors, it may impact on the size of the DC. So that will all come out once firstly, if the president signs the bill into law and that clause comes into effect, it will then mean that the MDB has to then, well, firstly, the MEC has to redetermine the number of seats. The MDB will have to go through a process of demarcation where they need to go and add additional 1 ward to each of those 3 municipalities. Whereafter we as the IEC will then obviously have to also then go and do a specific targeted registration within those wards that have now been created. And therein lies the rub. We are now coming closer to the end of May. We hope to have a general registration weekend by the middle of July. And if you know, it does create a bit of a pressure on us that particular process be finalized, to ensure that firstly there is a consultation process by the MDB, and secondly that we actually are given the opportunity to engage with those voters that are affected. So members must please just be aware that this final tally as it currently is here is subject to change, and maybe the next time I come to the committee I'll be able to give you what is the final, but that is somewhere unfortunately the situation that we still find ourselves in, which is outside of my control as at the current moment. Moving on, in terms of voting districts, what I've done is I've indicated the number of voting districts per municipality, as well as the number of split VDs. That would be the next slide. you'd see that obviously Cape Town would be the highest number of split VDs, given the fact that they have also the highest number of voting districts. So that when we talk about split VDs, those are the VDs that we are targeting through our targeted registration and communication campaign that we will be rolling out in the month of June, so that we can inform those particular voters. What will also happen is a voter that is affected will also receive what we call a Section 12 notice. That's in terms of Section 12 of the Electoral Act. The Chief Electoral Officer, if he or she finds that a voter is, that address is now in a different voting district, can move that particular voter to the voting district where he or she's ordinarily resident address is given. And we will then inform the voter. The voter has the opportunity then to come back to us, object to us, and say why he should not be moved, if whether we made a mistake or etc. So that will be a process where the voter is given opportunity to come back to us. But that is the total number of split voting districts. If we can just move on, just to give you an idea that where we are now, the total number of registered voters in the province as at the 4th of May was at just over 3 million. And of that particular total, 1.6 million are female and 1.3 million is male. In terms of your age distribution, that's on the next slide, we can also see in terms of the different age bands, how that total of 3.035 million is made up in terms of the age distribution. You will notice that the number of young people 18 to 19 is very low, 3,490. That remains a challenge. It's been a challenge all along, and I think also again the IEC will also ask members and their political parties to assist in ensuring that our young people come out and register in order for them to actually then participate in elections, either as voters or even as candidates once they reach the age of 18. Status of the voters roll with addresses. As you know, colleagues, members, this has been a big issue for the IEC based on the Constitutional Court case, where we were given an ultimatum by the Constitutional Court to ensure that we have to capture those addresses of voters where they are available. And we then started out, and you could see now where we started out since 2016, where we only had 34% of our voters roll had complete addresses, only 8 million. Where we are now, we are at 24 million of our voters, which is literally 93.8%. And then the next part is potentially incomplete addresses. In 2016, there was 8.6 million. We're down now to 272,000, which is just over 1.1%. Potentially incomplete addresses. This is where, on the RSU1 form, when people have applied to register, they didn't give a full address. In other words, a voter may have just said, I stay in Jack Street, without the actual number, so we don't know where in that particular street they were, or they may just give a flat and we don't know where the flat is situated. Or, for example, in a case of a farm, they give a particular name and we need to still follow up where exactly. So what, in that particular regard, the IEC has been doing is going through, looking at where we can, looking at that address, looking on our satellite maps where that particular place is, and then finding and then completing that particular process. So that is an ongoing process. And as you've seen, we've made massive strides in terms of that, from 8.6 million down to 272,000. That's in our province. Then, this is, across the country. And then in terms of no recorded address, this is simply where there is no address recorded on that RSU form. That is 4.9% across the country. And again, we need to just make sure that overall, this is what the voters that we really also want to come to the IEC on registration weekend, so that we can actually get your address. And then the next category is your RSC AS. AS stands for affirmation statement. This is the case where a voter doesn't have a formal address, but says, look, this is where I stay. I stay under the bridge, and and that bridge is in that particular place. So we don't have a particular address, and that is currently at 66,000. So of the total registered voters, as I indicated in the country, we have now at 25.8 million as at the 4th of May. If I move on, where we are now, see if I can carry on. So that is just a schematic of the total different categories of where we are. And then when it comes to the province, it's the next slide. We also can give you then the voters' roll addresses by municipality. That's the next slide. And again, you'll see that within our province, we're slightly higher than the national average at 94.3% of voters on a voters' roll has complete addresses. 1.4 or 41,000 is incomplete, and we have only 3,500 persons who have recorded as affirmation statements. So, and then the 49,000 that have no recorded address, which is 1.6%. So that is the status across our province in terms of the different municipalities. Our staff have been continuously engaged, ensuring that we keep up on this particular process. And then if I move on, we just have a geographic spread of the no recorded addresses in the province. And again, you'll see that for the most part, 4 to 6% is the highest percentage within a particular municipality, and that is the 4 municipalities that are indicated on our map there. For the rest, it is between 1 to 3% that where we don't have where we have voters without addresses, which is very low. If we can just move on. Going to the next slide, we have our Manhattan skyline slide, which is 2 slides. Next one, please. In terms of no recorded addresses. Move to 2 slides, please. And that just indicates again in the next one where we have the issue of no recorded addresses in terms of the percentage wise. And again, you'd see Oudtshoorn, Matsikama, and then relatively also Cedarburg, where we have that particular situation. But again, it's a relative 6% within that particular municipality. That's the next slide. Then when we go on to potentially incomplete addresses, again, we have a map there. And then where we are now in terms of the complete addresses, again, you'll see what is the status there on complete addresses. Overall, for example, City of Cape Town is at 97.4%. We also have in Swartland at also at 97, 98% in Cape Agulhas, etc. So you can see where we are and where we still need to do a little bit more work. Then the next slide, it just gives members a indication of the number of voting stations that we currently have. At the moment, you'll see the numbers per town or per municipality, noting that we have 1,576 voting stations. We have 474 voting centers. A center is basically where, given the size of the district and the number of voters, we convert the station into a center, and the center will have 2 or 3 substations, which are each manned by a deputy presiding officer. It just helps us with the flow of people to ensure that there's not a lot of congestion, etc. You'll also note that a particular issue that I'm working on is temporary voting stations. We are now at 31. In the last election, we had 36. And I hope that as we progress with finalizing our voting station contracts, that we can even reduce that particular number of temporary voting stations. In some cases, it's just simply impossible. There is just no structure available that we can use, in which case we are obliged then to use a temporary voting structure. Then we're moving on to staff and training. Where we are currently at, we as the IEC in this month, we are filling our contract staff positions. We have 40 municipal outreach coordinators that will be working with our voter education. We have 51 APCs, that is our assistant project coordinators, and we have also within our own provincial office here 4 additional staff. We've already had our registration training boot camp, the national one. That is where from provinces, all our lead trainers go up and we do a training boot camp. And for the province, we are set to have ours next week. That is also within all the trainers within the province will come together and we will do that training. We are also using, currently the e-recruit system is open for registration officials to apply to be our registration officers during the registration weekend. Just again to remind members on terms of the criteria for recruitment of electoral staff, that has been developed in consultation with the National Party Liaison Committee. Key consideration being to exclude persons that may be partisan. In other words, no one that has held a political party office may serve as an official. The names of our presiding officers and deputies are presented to the local PLCs for objection before they are confirmed. So we do involve and we ask the party reps at the local level, because if they know that if somebody has held, for example, a party office, to let us know, submit an objection to us, and we will consider that particular objection. So for registration weekend across this province, we'll employ approximately just more than 4,500 staff, and then for voting day we'd be having plus minus 18,000 staff that will be assisting the IC on election day. Thank you very much. Sorry, Johan, can we move on to stakeholder engagement? That is another area that we are involved in as the IEC, and we're working with a wide range of stakeholders, which includes state departments. I've been working closely with the Department of Local Government, as well as with the Department of Health and with the Education Department, because Education Department, particularly in terms of our schools as voting stations, local government, simply because of their that when it comes to local government, and also with the Department of Health, as we also try and monitor the situation with COVID in our province as well, and as well as the vaccine rollout process. We then also operate with the Prof joints with SAPS. We also work in with a number of other organizations across the spectrum. Yeah, so yes, that is where that is. Security, logistics, and warehousing. The provincial joints, activation thereof in terms of for elections preparation has happened between SAPS and ourselves, where we co-chair the election priority committee. That has also commenced operations. Warehousing. We have a very good provincial warehouse situated in Cape Town, and we've also been in the process now of onboarding a number of warehouse facilities at local level, because we need as soon as those bulk materials start arriving. Speaking of bulk material, the IEC is well on its way in terms of the procurement of our bulk material. You remember, these are your voting your ballot boxes, those tables, chairs, the booths, etc. These are all that is all bulk material, the pens, etc. that we need. We also then will be running tenders for our security items, like the seals, etc. And then we should also start the tender process for ballot paper production. Now, obviously, the final format and the who is on the ballot paper, that will only happen after the candidate nomination, but we need to start getting our printers on board so that production can commence as soon as we finalize the candidates list, parties and independents and ward candidates who are then contesting the election. But we have to start that. So we are well advanced in terms of that preparations of our logistics process as well. Then when it comes to communication and voter education, we do embark on a heightened communication and voter education program ahead of the elections, in which we then are encouraging our voters and advising them on the importance of voting and participation, how to register and how to update, where and how to vote. These are particular matters that we are also doing. We are also very keenly aware of where we are currently on COVID and explaining our COVID-19 protocols to the public. And we're also aware that in this sort of phenomenon where we are now, the period where we are now, you do have, unfortunately, the rise of social media has also seen a rise in disinformation that goes out. Often, it just takes one person to start something, and it takes a lot of people to then try and deal with the fallout of a particular claim that is made, which is clearly untrue. So yeah, that is something that we are also aware of. Within the province, we move on, please, Johan.
Sorry, Mr. for the interruption. Johan, can you move on the slides, please? We're stuck on the slide.
Yes, we've been stuck on this for ages.
Sorry. Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Johan. If you can move to the next slide, please, Johan. Outreach and communication. Within this particular province, we are currently engaging with organizations with persons with disabilities, unions. We're also engaging through our schools democracy program, where we want to reach out to our young people in terms of ensuring that they have opportunity to register and engaging them on civic and democracy education. In terms of communication, at a national level, we've secured a media buyer, and that has also then made an agreement with the National Community Radio Forum. In this province, we have identified 26 community radio stations across the province that we will be engaging so that we can have sessions on those particular community radio stations, which are scattered across the province. And that we hope to commence as soon as we can finalize our schedule of events with the various community radio stations. Then moving on, some of our key innovations for this election. The first one, members, you might have heard about this, is our voter management device, which we are procuring. And the idea is that this will replace our Zip. Members and the public have come to know our Zip as a machine where when you apply for registration, your ID is scanned. What the voter management device will do is to ensure that you can, firstly, it will have the ability to capture an address or place of residence during registration. So when we interact with that particular voter, and that voter then gives us, we scan the ID, we get your address, we can then register you using this. In the past, you'd fill in the RSC1 form, we take that form, we go back to the office, we then have to capture that. And the only thing that the voter will have is a zip sticker that says you applied to. And remember, applying for registration is not the same as being registered, because some, we may still find that for some reason that application has to be rejected. But in this case, what we hope to do with this machine is if we ensure the connectivity, that as and then we can actually say to the voter, okay, where do you stay? There you stay. If the voter cannot indicate clearly where he's staying, we can pull up a satellite map of the area in which he indicates, and then also then help that voter determine exactly where you are, because you also remember that in many of our communities we don't have the formal addresses, but we need to still determine where that person's address is, and that will go a long way in ensuring that we have a credible voters roll as well. To support as other functions, as I said, on election day, we hope to have then the machine also available at all stations, so that when a voter comes, we can immediately then determine that person on against the central voters roll, and if you vote there, then we can tick you off as voted, so that if the person arrives somewhere else to vote, it will be picked up that you can. Again, as I said, this all depends on connectivity, that we can actually have that facility available. We also know that in some of our areas, especially in some of the more deeper rural areas, connectivity is an issue. And that's also the reality. But this will go a long way to helping us. I know that there has sometimes been allegations of double voting, notwithstanding the fact that we have our indelible ink, but this will also then go a long way in again also in improving the way in which we run our elections. So we hope that this particular device will assist us in that regard. Thank you. We've also then revamped our public website for improved navigation, and then we've also loaded a reporting app for disinformation. In association with Media Monitoring Africa. So this is what we hope to do and land soon, so that, if there is a particular members of the public come across disinformation, they can report it, and we can then work together with Media Monitoring Africa to determine the veracity or not of that information, and to then respond to disinformation as it then happens. Other key innovations that we're putting up is the introduction of e-learning modules for our training of our staff. We're very much aware of COVID and the need to limit our coming togethers, and therefore we are now introducing e-learning modules where staff can go online and go through the training at their leisure, but nonetheless are still required to complete the particular modules, whether it's for registration or for election day. We've introduced e-recruitment for internal staff appointments as well as those for electoral staff. Test scores are received and incorporated from our e-learning where relevant. That will also go a long way in us being able to manage the recruitment of all the thousands of staff members we need for elections. I previously indicated the enhancements to the online candidate nomination system, so that we can also again make that more seamless and easier for parties to navigate, but also to ensure that the veracity of information is especially when, like I say, you come with ID numbers and etc. Names sometimes spelled incorrectly, etc. That we can verify that. Introduction of the new and revamped voter registration system. What we currently already are now is that a person that is already registered and a voter who finds himself that they have now moved to another town or another part of the city or town can go on our click and confirm app on our IEC website, and then change your address, because if you moved, then you can move where you are. So in other words, this applies for voters who are already registered, and you can then update your registration details in that particular way, and means that you don't actually have to come to our registration station over, when we're doing our registration weekend. We are also working on having a further application that will allow a person to actually apply for the first time online as well, but that process is also underway at the moment. And then observers are an important part of the election, and we are introducing then an online observer application system, again reducing the number of paperwork, reducing the turnaround time, and ensure that we can have quicker feedback and appointment of our official observers for these elections. Can I then just talk quickly on the COVID protocols to remind members the COVID protocols that we have. Some of these protocols, in fact, we've already started during the by-elections that we've been having and will have. Social distancing is being practiced, mandatory wearing of masks within the boundaries of the station, application of hand sanitizers to all persons entering and exiting the voting station. And then we're also replacing the traditional indelible ink marker that pens that we have. So we have it now with a liquid, which will be applied from the bottle using cotton buds, which are then disposed. Now the cotton bud is treated as a medical waste, and therefore it is also then safely disposed after each vote is not reused. We also have protective equipment for our staff, which includes then masks and gloves, face shields, and for those conducting give bibs, etc., so that they can ensure that both the voter and themselves are then safe. The next slide is just some photos of the staff that have this material on. And then on my last slide, Chairperson, can I just get to some of the key challenges that I've identified so far? And firstly, obviously, being agile to the COVID pandemic levels. As we know, we've seen now where we are with third waves coming. We've, as a province, experienced hotspots where different parts of the province has. So we need to remain agile in terms of that and responsive to where we are now. Voter turnout, generally, again, as members know, when it comes to local government elections, have generally turned to be lower than when it has national and provincial elections. So that remains a challenge. And how do we ensure that there is enough energy out there for the voters? And a lot of that depends, I think, also on the political parties and what they're offering voters. So again, in terms of that, it's something which is not only simply left to the IEC, but generally to all the players when it comes to elections, to ensure that we can improve voter turnout. We, like any other state institution, we have also resource constraints. Namely, one of the biggest constraints has led to the fact that we can only have one registration weekend. Normally we have two, but given our financial constraints, we only have one voter registration. Heightened political contestation, that is a given. Members will recall that in 2016, we had 76 political parties participating in this province across different municipalities. That is a high number, together with a high number of candidates, including independent candidates. So that heightened contestation is a good thing, but it also comes with a lot of sort of complaints between political parties and allegations, etc. So it does cause a bit of heightened between political parties and candidates, so we're aware of that. Impact of service delivery protests on the smooth conduct of elections, that is a reality across the country, and our province is not immune to that, together with the situations where in certain of our communities you also have the high levels of gang activity, etc., that also impacts on the safety of voters. And then as I started out at the start of the presentation, this outstanding demarcation issues in the three municipalities, in Kannaland, Laingsburg and Prince Albert, that has a potential in terms of us finalizing our voters' roll for those particular three municipalities, as well as the total number of seats that are available in those particular three municipalities, and to what extent they will in fact even then impact on the size of the district council, because remember, local council sends reps to the district council. So you may potentially see a slight increase in the size of the district councils in Central Karoo and also with Garden Route going forward. But again, that is something that we are closely monitoring. I'm in close contact also with the HOD of local government in the province with regard to that particular process. Thank you, members. Can I just, one other thing that if I can, Member Mackenzie. At this particular stage, in terms of what the commissioners announced on the Dikgang Moseneke being appointed to do a report to us, it is really just, I think, given the fact that political parties were invited, the leaders and senior reps attended a workshop where the Minister of COGTA and also Minister of Health was present, where parties were asked to indicate, what their views were on whether elections must be postponed or not. And as you know, that some parties indicated that the elections must carry on, and when other parties had said no, they should actually be postponed given the fact of COVID. Now, the best way for us to respond to this is then to say, how do we assess all of these inputs? We want to then also give broader than just the political parties, other role players within the election space, the opportunity to make their comment on this. And I think Judge Dikgang Moseneke is as well chosen, given his experience in elections, but also given his standing and as a constitutional court judge as well. So that is really where we are now. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hendricks. Quite a lot of information that you have shared with us. I'm going to open the floor for questions from members with regard to your presentation. And then once we have exhausted the opportunity for members to ask questions, we will then move on to the second part of our meeting. So I've noticed Honourable Murray, Honourable van der Westhuizen, and Honourable Brinkhuis, and I will take those three sort of members to pose their questions first, starting with Honourable Murray.
Thank you so much, Chair. I think this was a well presented paper and the report on how far we are with the election. I'm well satisfied, but it's a lot of information to absorb in half an hour or so, or hour. I want to know, therefore, is this going to be available in Afrikaans too? Because the Constitution of the Western Cape says Afrikaans is one of 3 official languages and must be treated equally. Now, this information must be distributed to our structure so that they know what's going on. And the Freedom Front has got support in areas, lots of support, where there's mostly Afrikaans-speaking communities. And to give this to our organizers and our regional leaders in English will mean very little to them. So I'm appealing to this House to take a decision that presentations of this nature be given in Afrikaans as well as in English, because Afrikaans is the home language of the majority of the people in the Western Cape.
Thank you, Honourable Murray. Honourable van der Westhuizen, I recognize you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, I've got 6 short questions. The first one is, it seems to me as if we still have the existing ward maps on the IEC website. Would Mr. Hendricks be able to give us an indication of when the updated maps would be published so that voters would be able to see, you know, what the new boundaries are and whether they are correctly registered? And the reason why I looked at that one leads me to my next question. Must voting stations really be within the boundaries of a particular ward? In Stellenbosch, we've got 2 cases where if the boundary moved slightly, it wouldn't affect a single voter, but it will include a school versus a temporary tent opposite that school on an open piece of land. And I think we all will agree that normally a school with a hall and ablution facilities and a kitchen and a staff room are just so much, better for voters as well as for IEC staff on election day. Then will voter addresses be updated on election day? In the past, I know the IEC said that they concentrate now on getting the voting process done and done, in a way which will be accepted and free and fair. But we do know that this is also a unique opportunity, and as Mr. Hendricks explained to us, voters will now see on that new, I don't know if you've got a new name for the zip, but that what the current addresses are. And we do know that sometimes voters just move slightly within a ward or within a town, and they will still go to where they are registered, which may not be the correct one for the next elections. Then the next question is, when will additional and temporary office staff be appointed? And from what date will IEC offices therefore then be open 5 days a week? Currently, we know that the IEC is thin on the ground, and Mr. Hendricks referred to the lack of resources and the limitations. But sometimes IEC offices, because people are, self-isolating because they need to go for training, etc. Members of the public arrive at these offices to register as voters, just to discover that the office is closed on that particular day. Second last question. Are municipal managers always the best local liaison officers? Because it's been my experience that IEC seems to favor, if not by law, then in terms of practice, municipal managers. And it's my impression that some municipal managers are already under tremendous political pressure. And now they need to suddenly be seen as independent officers representing the interests of the IEC and the election process. And then my last and sixth question, will your, and it's actually a request, that you concentrate on the training when it comes to the counting and the cross-balancing of ballot papers. It seems to me, and it's quite important, that through the course of the election day, everything is managed well, but that it's been my experience of many years, and my first experience as a candidate was in 2020, is that sometimes, when everybody's tired tonight, the voting stations have now closed, and that people try and just rush the counting process, and they're not willing to do cross-counting. I've been witnessing and complaining about cases where, for example, they said, well, if this is what all the other parties got, then let's say this big party must have received the remainder. We're not going to count the votes of that party. And it for me points to a serious lack in terms of the training required. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen, sir. I recognize Honourable Brunkhuis.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have two questions. The first question is that online registration at the IEC, is it currently possible for people to register online? If it is not, when will it be available, the online registration? My second question is that can a candidate stand for his party in two different municipalities in one election? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Brunkhuis. I recognize Honourable Allen.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I thought that, let me just open up, made some notes. I wanted to thank the IEC for the presentation, and I know according to the agenda, we are engaging Home Affairs as well, but are we able to hear from the IEC if there has been any engagement from their side with Home Affairs in terms of the way forward to ensure that those that don't have IDs, for example, are able to obtain those, and if it's fast-tracked, and if the IEC feels confident that Home Affairs is actually on board to come and help in that regard. But then secondly, I understand, as Mr. Hendricks explained, that political parties have a big role to play towards voter apathy and to help and assist voters to ultimately register. But I wanted to get an understanding that if we are able to understand more regarding the TCR that is rolled out by the IEC in terms of the engagement prior to an election, to engage voters and to improve the quality of addresses. Just to get some more understanding, does that even include, in this difficult time, does it even include schools? Just to get more info on that. And then just my last question for this round, I just want to double check. I appreciate the strict protocols that is in place with regard to COVID. And just, I'm not sure, Chief, this is now a silly question, but regarding pens to vote, I understand that the social distancing, the mask, etc. But in terms of in the voting booth, the pens, how will we deal with that? And that's all for me for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Alan. I am fully aware that I will not be able to see members in the chamber who would like to ask questions. So I'm, handing over to the chamber if there are any members there who would like to pose questions to Mr. Hendricks.
Yes, please, Chairperson Ricardo Mackenzie. I'm going to just give my questions quickly. Can I just get from Mr. Hendricks, what is the standard procedure for proclaiming dates? The president made an announcement. Is it within 3 months, within 6 months of the announcement? If you can just share that with us. And then the second question, where and how do we make input into the Mosaneka process? And when are they going to advertise it? The third question is around the targeted voter registration. Just how, the where, and when will they let us know? Because he mentioned for those split VDs, they're going to have that. And then the fourth question would be around the voter registration. So far, the IC has only given us those dates, I think the 16th, 17th of July, 17th, 18th of July. Previously, one could, and I, for example, Mr. explained, you could previously take a taxi, you could go to the IEC offices, and we understand there's COVID-19, but there doesn't seem to be a standard operating procedure. I can see some of my colleagues go to Belleville, it's like almost like the manager at his venue at the moment implement his own rules, the way they woke up that morning. Can you share with us what is the standard procedures? The managers at each venue don't make rules as they go ahead, because it could work very well 2016, 2018. You could take a taxi, go outside, stand there with the taxi, and I did it personally. So this is not somebody's experience, this is my personal experience. Register the youth. But now it seems that each one makes its rules as you go along. Some say, no, you're supposed to make an appointment within 72 hours. What is the standard operating procedure? So it applies to every venue if I decide to take a taxi full of people to go register. Thank you. And I hand over to Member Botha in the House.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm latching onto the question posed by Member Mackenzie now. And I would also then ask that standard operation procedure be communicated to us so that I can hold it forth in my municipal area where I am the PLC representative. I want to then also say that concerns were raised in Drakensberg not too long ago, and I speak of about 3-4 weeks ago, where the IEC office was open on a staggered basis. In other words, people would go and they would want to register voters, but then the office is closed without any notice even given to councillors. If Mr. Hendricks can just speak to that. And then I'd like to know, and I want to compliment in regard to by-elections, and I have been at a few recently, and the protocols in regard to COVID was very well observed by the IEC. I want to know, in regard to the local government election, will dedicated staff then be employed also to manage that protocols? Because we are going to have many more people in standing in queues to go and vote as we would have at a by-election. Then I'd like to also know, in the rural area, and I come from a rural area, with regard to the hours of registration, is the IEC open to go to where voters are, instead of voters coming to where the IEC office is, if it is in one town? Would they go, would the IEC be open to go where voters, multiple voters are, or potential voters are, in order to register? Thank you, Chairperson. That's my questions.
Thank you, colleagues in the chamber and colleagues who are remotely connected. Could I ask just those colleagues to lower their hands, or if they wish to ask additional questions, then certainly I will give them an opportunity in the second round. I just have 2 or 3 questions myself I'd like to ask, and that with regard to the demarcation, and I know in my own constituency, a huge number of voters were moved from one ward to another, and the re-registration of those voters, would the IEC conduct the re-registration process themselves, or is it incumbent upon political parties to ensure that those voters are re-registered in a different ward, or are they automatically re-registered in a different ward? That is a notification that will be issued to them that they now fall in Ward 6 instead of Ward 5 or 1 or 2. And the second question, Mr. Hendricks, which is in relation to load shedding. What provisions have been made, particularly in in our rural areas, and where we have temporary voting stations, of the possible sort of impact that load shedding may have on the voting process on the day, and these new innovative machines that you have, would they be dependent upon electric power supply, or is it sort of remotely activated? And then thirdly, you have alluded to the fact that in the run-up to the elections, there's often heightened tensions that emanate amongst political opponents, and there's also intimidation of voters is extremely ratcheted up also during that particular period leading up to the elections, and even on election day. Have you created a dispute resolution mechanism that could speedily address disputes that may arise in terms of complaints? Because we know, by-elections, it is often easier. Here we will have a provincial election, and it will be widespread and across the province, and we need to have a mechanism to de-escalate tensions that may arise as a result of the contestation. That is round one of the questions. Honourable Regan Allen, I see your hand is still raised. I don't know if you want to have a follow-up question now.
Speak, Chairman, can I have a point of order?
Yes, sure.
Can we have a ruling from you, Chair, with your permission, that we don't allow members to have 20 questions or 30 questions, taking half an hour of the time, but that you as chairman limit the number of questions in each round, or we're going to sit here the whole day. So they have this presentation which covers most of the questions I've heard is covered in the presentation. But members ask 12 questions, 13 questions at one go, and they're long-winded. Can we have a ruling on this, please?
Thank you. Noted, I don't think it requires a ruling at this stage. The questions have been asked. So I'm going to ask Mr. Hendricks but it's noted, Honourable Marais, and if we have a second round of questions, it will certainly, be communicated to members to restrict themselves in terms of the questions that they ask. I'm going to hand over to Honourable Mr. Hendricks to respond to those questions that were raised, and we take it from there. Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Please, Chair, I'll also be guided by your biases in case I missed a question. That you please, or a member just ask me if I didn't cover a particular one. With regard to Member Marais, well, the issue of where this presentation is converted, I think most of the information on there is stats, and it is possible for the committee to convert that into the official languages. Can I say from our side as the IEC, when we do go out, we do communicate within the three official languages of the province as well. When we do our voter education, for example, when we go on radio stations, our community radio stations, also we will communicate in terms of the language of that particular community's radio, which serves a particular language audience as well. So we are responsive to that. Member van der Westhuizen, the existing road maps.
Sorry, I must ask. I asked if this paper you presented will be available to members of this House in Afrikaans too. I'm not talking about the public, talking about the members of this House.
Chair, I'll have to see what our resources is with regard to that, but we'll certainly try and do a translation for you, if that is fine with you, sir.
Yeah, thank
that
you.
will be fine with me.
Could I ask Honourable Marais, just to allow Mr. Hendricks to respond to the question, should he have a concern in the manner in which some of the questions have been responded to, then I will give him an opportunity to raise it after Mr. Hendricks has responded. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you are in chair to uphold the Constitution of the Western Cape. That's your job as chair or speaker. The Constitution says Afrikaans is an official language and that everything must be in 2 languages at least, 2 out of the 3. I'm asking now for Afrikaans to be respected. You can't delay that question.
Sorry, Chair, I've lost the volume.
Can I see Mr. America?
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, my apology. What I was saying is that I don't want the members to interrupt you when you respond to the questions, and that is what Mr. Honourable Marais has done. And notwithstanding the validity of his input, I would implore upon members to allow Mr. Hendriksen to respond to questions, and if they wish to make a statement afterwards with regard to the responses, an opportunity will be provided to them. Thank you, Mr. Hendriksen. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. Can I then move on to Member van der? I will have to look into that maps. Thank you for bringing it to my attention, and I will bring it then also to the if in fact we still have the older ward maps on our website. So can I ask that you thank you for bringing that to my attention, and I will certainly follow it up also with our office. In regard to voting, the voting procedures, section 47 of our local government electoral legislation says that the voter has to vote in the vote only at the voting station in the voting district in which that voter is registered. So that is where the current law stands as it is. Where that will be in the future, if we get down the road, much down the road in terms of online voting, etc. But that is not yet where we are currently. But so the current law stands in section 47 of the Act. Updating of addresses, yes, when you come and vote, you can update your address, but remember that you can do that, but you can't register on the date of election. The voters roll that we use will be the voters roll as it exists on the date of proclamation. But certainly, if a voter comes only on election day, he can also still provide us with his address, and we will record that. But it will be part of the voter registration system. But it doesn't mean, and I just again emphasize, it doesn't mean that a voter can register and vote in that election if he hadn't previously voted before the voters roll closed for that particular election. Appointing of office staff, and as I think Member Botha also raised this particular matter, and Member Mackenzie, yes, we have a standard. I will make sure that members get a copy of that instruction that we sent out to our local offices when and how to deal with registrations at the local office. It is limited staff, and staff are out because, as I indicated, we're going to be doing PCR, etc. So there will be time that our office is closed. It is just our reality. We are in the process of appointing additional staff, and they will come aboard. But the idea is then that when the office hours and schedules will then and are communicated to the local PLC members, so that they're also aware when the office will actually be closed. Similarly, we said again, based on COVID, we cannot allow a lot of people to arrive at the same time, and therefore we ask when political parties want to bring a large number of their supporters that you actually make an appointment. It is just fair and reasonable in that regard. But I will get that out to you, to the committee coordinator, and you can distribute it further on also. Are the MMs the best MEOs? I think it's important that we understand what is the role of the MEO. Primarily, the reason for having an MEO is to be that liaison between the IEC and the municipality, in order for the IEC to access the resources of the municipality for no other role. The IEC is still running the election at the end of the day. And anyway, it is beholden on any official, whether you are at whatever sphere of government, when you are performing your functions as an official, you will have to perform them without fear, favor, or prejudice. But we have, that is the model that is applied by the IEC. We go through this process where municipalities can recommend either the municipal manager or a senior municipal official. We have in one or two cases in this province where the MEO is not the municipal manager, but one of the senior officials of the administration. So it's not a given that it will always be, but we go with what the recommendation is of the council, because at the end of the day, when we access that resources, council must be aware of when you want to access certain resources and assistance from the municipality. When it comes to the counting, I agree 100% with you on the issue of counting and for training. I think that a lot of times we put a lot of emphasis in the roll out, going out, in other words, preparing everything, making sure everything goes to where it must be. But then our challenge is when it comes to the counting process and the rollback, both of the results and the material. And I think that is something which certainly I have indicated already to my training staff that we need to make sure that we concentrate on and see how we, what are some of the lessons learned in the past and how do we can actually improve on that. Because sometimes we try and fall back on the same thing. I think that's the definition of insanity, where you do the same thing and expecting a different result. But again, the reality also as members, that our infrastructure across this province is not equal. Okay, we have situations where in some communities, given the infrastructure that is available is vastly different to other areas, and that is a challenge that we are consistently sitting with. And I hope that as members of the legislature and your oversight over government departments, when you look at what they are doing in those particular communities, you also bear that in mind, and that will also be of assistance. With member Brunkhuis, the online registration, it is not on yet. We are working on that particular app. As you know, it is something that we have to be very careful of because you're literally allowing remote registration. So in other words, we're not going to see you. So how do we best build in a level of security to ensure that it's not people just sitting somewhere there registering on behalf of whoever, and I think that is where we are. So at this stage, member, I cannot give you the date. I'm waiting, as in other provinces, we wait for the finalization of that app at our national office. As soon as we know, we will publish that. And maybe by the time I come back to the committee, if I am invited, I can give you to that member. I'm sorry, I can't give you a more definitive response than that. Can a candidate for a party stand in 2 municipalities? Definitely not. I think you should just look at our constitution. I think it's 158 that says that you must stand. You can be a candidate. You can be a member of the council for the municipality in which you are registered. You can't then serve 2 municipalities, not at all. And so you can't also be. The only time that you can possibly be a candidate is in the case of a district council and a local council, but then in the same area. In terms of the TCR, yes, we are rolling out, and also with our schools, democracy education, we are in touch with our schools to see to what extent we can visit schools. We are aware of the different COVID protocols that apply, but we are engaging with schools so that we can actually also go to schools and encourage. Remember, a South African citizen can register as soon as you are 16 years old and in possession of an ID. However, you can only vote once you turn 18. So it's good that you register, and if the elections happen and you just had your birthday, you'll be able to vote because you get automatically then included in the voters roll for that particular election. With Home Affairs, yeah, we hope to I must be honest, I have not had a lot of engagement with Home Affairs with regard to that, but we have identified an initiative where we would like to work with Home Affairs when they are, when they are delivering IDs, so that we can work with them and possibly have a situation where we can do the registration applications when Home Affairs are actually handing out those particular IDs, bearing in mind the COVID situation. Pens for voting. Yes, the pens are disinfected as generally with our materials at voting stations. The pens that we use are disinfected all the time, and then we also encourage voters to bring their own pens. There's nothing stopping a voter from bringing his or her own pen to the voting station. The proclamation date, Member Mackenzie, that is a prerogative of the minister. I am not too sure. I don't want to quote the relevant section, but I know that the minister must then proclaim as soon as the term has ended. I know that she will definitely have to proclaim. Whether she can do so even prior to the end of the current term, I am not aware. I wouldn't want to sort of just answer that without having to double check it. But maybe the colleagues from the local government department can respond to that. With regard to the Moseneke, I think that's what we call it now, the Moseneke report and process. Yes, as soon as the judge is on board, I think he will make known what is the actual process, and that will be publicized by the IEC widely on his own website and also through the members can know how to make I know that, for example, political parties definitely will be invited to make their submissions. For the to you that on the opening of our local offices and the SOP, and I will deal with that and send that out. Member Buerta, Drakenstein, open on a staggered basis. Yes, I think that I will speak to the local IC office, because they should be informing the MPLC about when the offices are open. Follow up on that particular that complete issue that you've raised, member, for the Drakenstein MPLC. With the by-elections, COVID and of the yeah, look, again, we are hoping that in effect that we've had an effective trial of our COVID protocols for elections, and I'm very much aware that the numbers will, whether or not we will actually have more people as sort of what they call it, queue walkers. That we'll have to see in terms of our resources and what we're available. But we do again ask, especially political parties. Political parties have what we call temporary operating facilities. It's a nice name for a tent that you have outside of the voting station. And often that is where people congregate, unfortunately. And again, we're going to ask your role as leaders of political parties to assist that when it comes to elections and those facilities that parties man outside the station, that you please ensure that social distancing and the COVID protocols are adhered to. We'll try our best from our side also to assist in that particular regard. We'll also be calling on the assistance of the South African police, because this is happening outside of the voting station, to also ensure that we can ensure that the COVID protocols are adhered to. So we will be working with all of you in terms of ensuring that we can have safe elections. I think it's in interest of everybody that we have safe elections. The registration, will the IC go out? We are busy working. As I indicated, we have what we appointed now our municipal outreach coordinators, and we're looking at where we can actually go out to particular spaces and have a registration event in a particular area. What we cannot, however, do is simply go to any event taking place without being sure that the COVID protocols are in place, and that we do not create inadvertently some sort of a mini spreader event at such a place. Chairperson, the demarcation of wards, the re-registration, no, we re-register. At the end of the day, it is the IEC that has to ensure that voters who have moved are re-registered in the correct voting district, because if their address finds them now somewhere else. We do also issue the Section 12 notices to voters, where we tell them, look, you are not, this is where your voting station is now. It may be different from where you think it was. So that is a particular process that we also embark on. Yes, a load shedding is always a particular issue, and I'm in constant contact really with the regional head of Eskom around it, where we're advising, for example, even now when we're having by-elections, where we are having, so that they can limit the impact of load shedding in that particular regard. We are also hoping that municipalities can assist us where they can, especially where we have, the need for generators and stuff, that they can assist us. With regard to the VMD, the voter management device that I referred to, Chairperson, they come with batteries. So you can either plug it into the socket, or it will have a battery. And every unit comes with a spare battery as well. So the idea is that you can use battery power for the VMD. Heightened tensions, yes, Chairperson, it is so. But again, firstly, I want to call on members as leaders of your parties to ensure that those tensions don't escalate, because typically it becomes between parties, and it's always amazing that, even at local level, people are every day so well behaved, and then on election day something happens, and previously would be very close colleagues enter into sort of disputes. We will be having our conflict mediation panels again in this province. I've just been informed that we're in the process of finalizing that plan around that to deal with certain conflict situations. But primarily, please, can I ask political parties because at the end of the day, it is your members that cause, when there are some of these particular nasty disputes amongst each other, that you intervene because you know each other at different leadership levels to assist. Can I also remind members of the, I think it was last year, before I got here, there was an electoral court decision with regard to the jurisdiction of the IEC when it comes to offences and contraventions of codes and stuff like that. And the electoral court was very clear and said, IEC, you cannot determine, adjudicate that, nor can you impose any sanction. You'll notice that in the electoral legislation, it talks about the different sanctions, from fines right up to suspending a candidate or even suspending the registration of a political party. The electoral court was very clear in saying, look, those particular disputes, that is not something for the IEC to manage or to even decide, sorry, but rather it is an electoral court. And as you know, the electoral court, even a magistrate's court, in terms of the rules of that electoral court, can convert itself into an electoral court. Similar like the magistrate's court converts itself to the equality court. Similarly, there's provisions for that. So members must be aware of that. I know that that matter is subject to appeal currently, and as soon as that next court has given clarity on this particular matter, it will again be, and I will endeavour to get a copy of that judgment to the secretary, so that you, as a committee members or members there, can also then have access to that particular judgment and understand what would be then the implications of such a judgment in terms of how we deal with particular disputes. Not all of them, but particular disputes. But I think that the best way to deal with disputes always is for the parties amongst each other to come to some resolution, not leave it to a judge, because sometimes nobody's happy with the ruling and it doesn't deal with a particular issue at hand. Chairperson, I hope I've covered all the questions, Chairperson. If I haven't, please let me know, and then if there's another round, I'm also aware of the time. I don't know, I see colleagues from Home Affairs, but I'm in your hands, Chairperson. I'm available.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Sir, we have allocated 1.5 hours for your presentation, and we have slightly gone over and above that time allocation. So I bar that, there's a very serious follow-up question. I will allow that, but I want to just speak to Honourable Marais. Sort of statement. I want to just let the meeting know that we have not requested from the IEC or Home Affairs to provide us with presentations in all 3 languages of the province. And as per usual practice, 99% or 100% of our presentations are in English, and I would advise Honourable Marais that should you wish this presentation to be translated, he should liaise with the parliamentary translation services to assist him in having this presentation translated. And I'm not going to impose that duty on the IEC to provide us with a translated copy. So I'm going to just...
Chairman, can I address you on that?
I will give you an opportunity, Honourable Marais, but I just want to, hear from Honourable van der Westhuizen if it's a very serious matter he wants to raise, because we will have further engagements with the IEC as we move along towards the elections, and again all members will be invited to such a meeting. But Honourable van der Westhuizen, I hand over to you if it is something very serious that you want to raise.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's not a new matter. I think Mr. Hendricks perhaps either missed my call on clarity regarding temporary voting stations right on the boundary of a ward, when opposite the street there is a school that is not being used by the IEC, but that in the past felt right just outside that ward boundaries. Wouldn't there be a case to be made for either the boundaries to be redrawn or then just for the school to be used rather than a tent? Thank you. I think he may have missed that question of mine.
Thank you. Ms. Hendricks, you may respond directly to that question now.
Thank you. My apologies, member. Yes, it is such, and I mean, if you are aware, member, let me know. Because typically we prefer that we want to have a school. As I indicated to the committee early on, I'm intent on reducing the number of temporary voting stations, because I think people should be able to vote in dignity in a way that is conducive to our elections as well. And I have asked the staff to say where there is a school, make it available. I just need to make one clear, depending on whether where the voting station boundary is. In some cases, we don't have a choice because there may be it's a sort of big road or whatever the case may be, or moving that, because if I move the boundary, I obviously move voters as well from that adjacent boundary in there, not just the particular school. But through the procedural officer, if the member wants to let me know. He can certainly do that. Alternatively, he can, through his, wherever this is occurring, through the MPLC member, also raise it there. But fine, we'll have a look at it. The other thing, obviously, Chair, is if that is a ward boundary, then we don't have much of a say in it. But thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Beret. I recognize you.
Thank you, Chair. Ek gaan nou Afrikaans praat en as jy my stop, dan is dit u reg om my te stop. Maar ek weet nie in watter klousule in die konstitusie u die reg het nie. Het u gesê dat u het nie gevra die ANC, die IEC, moet voorlegging ook in Afrikaans of enige ander taal maak nie, behalwe Engels. En dat enige ander voorlegging in hierdie huis ook nie aangevra is in Afrikaans nie. Ek wil hê moet antwoord sodat die kieserspubliek kan hoor of u Afrikaans, die DA Afrikaans respekteer of onder hulle voete vertrap. En is dit wat u gesê het, dat u nie aanvra vir voorleggings in Afrikaans nie, en dus het ek nie as 'n lid van die parlement die reg om voorleggings te lees in Afrikaans nie. Ek wil graag 'n antwoord daarop hê.
Goed so, achtbare Marijn. Ek dink dit is 'n verdraaiing van die waarheid van hierdie parlement. Enige lid van die parlement is geregtig om homself uit te druk in die taal van hom of haar keuse. Ek het aan die aanvang van die vergadering gesê, ons het 'n beperking ten opsigte van vertalingsfasiliteite op hierdie vergadering, maar lede kan hulle uitspreek in 'n taal van hulle keuse en dit sal onderlings reëling tref die vertaling daarvan. En jy weet, dit is baie duidelik dat ons erken die 3 tale in die provinsie en dis in ons grondwet en dit is in ons interaksie met mekaar. So die stelling dat ons misken Afrikaans is meer is van alle waarheid ontbloot in die sin dat ons versoek die voorleggings van enige buitepersone wat voorleggings aan ons doen om die voorleggings in al 3 tale te doen, maar ek gaan nie verdere bespreking op hierdie punt toelaat nie. Ek het my stelling gemaak, meneer Maree. As u hierdie voorlegging wil laat transkribeer in Afrikaans, u kan skakel met die wetgewers vertalings afdeling en hulle sal vir u kan help daarmee. Okay, colleagues. Having said that, I'm going to close this discussion around the ISC. And I want to thank Mr. Hendrikse for his presentation and his responses to the questions. I know that they're going to have an extremely busy time leading up to the elections. And on behalf of ourselves, the committees, want to wish you strength and courage for the decisions you will have to make in the months to come. And once again, from all of us, congratulations on your appointment, and we wish you well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you also to the members for the interaction. I appreciate that. It's always good to have the interaction. You do have an oversight role also, and I appreciate that. So whenever the committee wants, I'm available to come back. Thank you very much, members. Have a good day.
Goodbye. Right, colleagues, we will make the necessary resolutions at the end of the meeting, and that also relates to the presentation that we have sort of experienced now with the IEC. And with that, colleagues, I hand you over to my colleague in the chamber, Honourable Mackenzie, who will take the meeting further from this point onwards. Thank you.
Thank you, colleague. Just for the record, my name is Ricardo Mackenzie. I'm the chairperson of Constitutional Matters. Thank you to thank the Department of Home Affairs for doing the presentation to us today. I understand based on the list, I have Mr. T. Sigama, who's the Deputy Director General for Civic Services, and Mrs. I. Michaels, who's the Acting Provincial Manager for the Western Cape, with us today. Colleagues will allow them to do their presentations, and then afterwards we'll take their hands for members in the House first, and then for those online, I'll ask Johan to. Can I just ask our colleagues from Home Affairs, what would you feel comfortable with? Will you fly the presentation, or should we do it from the House?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I would prefer that you fly the presentation from your side.
Okay, we'll do that now. And just before you start your presentation, I prefer people put on their video so we can see who they are. And once you start the presentation, you're welcome to switch off your video.
Okay, good morning. My name is Thomas Sigama. I'm the Deputy Director General for Civic Services in the Department of Home Affairs. I'm not alone. I'm with my colleagues from the same department that are based in Cape Town. It's the Acting PM, Ms. Michaels, as well as Ms. Almin van der Berg. They are on the other side. Perhaps they can also show their faces on the other side. On this side, which is head office, I'm with my colleagues who are responsible for voter registration programs, Dr. Aaron Ramodumo, Ms. Matala, as well as Mr. Patrick Williams. So they've joined me in the same session. Thanks, Chair. May I ask my colleagues to show their faces from that side?
Before you head over, okay, you mentioned your doctor and the three of your colleagues, but we don't see them.
Oh, okay. Let me ask them to come this side so that they can just show you their face, because we are in a bigger boardroom. Dr. Matala, can you come this side? Just a second.
They can just for the record introduce themselves and their job titles as well, so we just know what they're responsible for.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Aaron Ramudumo. I'm the Acting Director, Back Office ID Processing, and I'm responsible for, amongst others, the voter registration processes from the Home Affairs side of things. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, honorable members. I'm Kudu Matlala, Director, Fingerprints Verification. Thank you.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Patrick Williams. I am the Chief Director, Civic Services Support, linked to the Office of the Deputy Director General of Civic Services. Thank you.
Thank you. And now can the colleagues in Cape Town introduce them? Ms. Michaels and your team, can you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson and all the honorable members. My name is Umgard Michaels. I'm the Acting Provincial Manager for the Western Cape. With me is Ms. van der Berg, Almin van der Berg, and you'll see her.
Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members. I'm Almin van der Berg and I am the Provincial Coordinator for the Department of Home Affairs in Western Cape. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Now we know who we're dealing with and who's in this meeting. You can continue with the presentation, colleagues. Mr. Sigama, are you going to start first?
Yes, thanks very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable members, good morning. May I request that the presentation be put on a slide mode before I start, and also to request that maybe I should switch off the camera so that I can have enough bandwidth when I speak.
Thank you.
Is it fine, Honorable?
Yes, you can now. Thank you.
All right. Now, thanks very much. As requested, Chair, we have prepared our presentation in terms of the state of readiness with regard to the local government election. In our presentation, we're going to touch about 8 areas. We'll have the purpose, the background, the relationship, our relationship with the DHA and IEC, overview in terms of the services that will be rendered on the day of voter registration. We'll also touch upon the state of readiness of the province, wherein we will present our structures, our footprint, the approach towards local government elections, and we also have to deal with the issues around uncollected IDs, our communication strategy to those that are residing in the area and how we'll be interacting with them, our ID distribution plan, our mobile units that we've allocated to the province and its schedule, and our risks that have also picked up on in the process, and the contact information in all the areas around the Western Cape. And lastly, we'll deal with the recommendations. So the purpose indeed is to present to the House the state of readiness for the 2021 local government elections from the Department of Home Affairs. Particularly, our focus will be mainly in the Western Cape province. So in terms of the background, if we can move to the next one, we have to look at the Constitution that provides that every adult citizen has the right to vote in an election for any legislative body established in terms of the Constitution, and to do so in secret. So we've tapped into Section 19(3)(a) of the Constitution to support that. But as a Department of Home Affairs, we are responsible for population registration, determination of citizenship, issuing of enabling documents. By enabling documents, we are referring to IDs, passports, birth certificates, marriages, death certificate, amendments, and other related services within the department. So our population registration entails the recording of personal particulars in the population register with a view to issuing of certificates and identity documents. So as you're aware, issues of identification means we have to make sure that we take fingerprints. We also have to match those fingerprints against the photographs provided by people and any other matters pertaining to the status of a person, such as birth, marriages, and deaths. So the department, in terms of the provision of the Identification Act, which is Act number 68 of 1997, says we are responsible for processing of identity documents to all South African citizens. These documents are issued on application and enable holders thereof to identify themselves for general purposes. So I think those are some of the things that we deal with. If we can move to the second one, we would like to deal with our relationship between Home Affairs and IEC as we work together. So we in terms of the constitution, as I've indicated before, we have to make sure that we assist those that are qualified, who qualify for documents. So by the documents that we are issuing at the moment, we are still issuing the green barcoded ID books and the smart ID cards. And lastly, for those who have lost their documents, we are issuing the temporary identification certificate, which are the TICs. So in terms of the ecosystem of our data, we share our interfaces of National Population Register with that of the IEC so that they verify the information within our systems. And we also perform the so-called authentication and verification for the voters. So when there are challenges, then they always check against our National Population Register, wherein our officials will then go back to the records that were submitted by clients when they apply for their documents, and then those documents are verified, and then we give feedback to the IEC. Also look at the accuracy of the citizens' data on NPR, which impacts on the integrity and reliability of the voters' roll and elections. At the provincial level, our colleagues, Ms. Michaels and Ms. Almin from the back that side, they also participate in all the local government meetings and also the IEC meetings that are held in the province. We also support them when we do have such meetings, so that we also we share information amongst the groups that are there. Then we also develop programs together with the IEC, particularly when we deal with the ID campaigns, wherein we then share information in terms of ID distribution campaigns and also the applications if there are needs. There's a need for those who are in need of IDs, then we also share our program so that together we go to those communities, including the provincial stakeholder forum, so that they share documents, including applications. Then in terms of our overview, that we have done when we render services, what we did was to make sure that we look at our operating hours, wherein our Home Affairs and IEC, we have agreed that we will work together. What we do, we align our operating hours with that of IEC. And in this case, we have already been informed that the voter registration weekend will be on the 17th and 18th. Plans are underway from our side. We are ready. We have engaged them. They've shared with us some of the schedules so that we then compare our logistics in this side, so that by the time they open their voters registration, Home Affairs, all our Home Affairs offices should be open at that time. So we have also tried to align our times with that of the election date that has already been promulgated, which is the 27th of October 2021. So in terms of services that will be rendered during those periods, we'll make sure that we deal with the distribution of uncollected smart ID cards, including the green barcoded ID books. We have also prepared our system in such a way that we resend SMSs to those who have not yet collected their ID cards, so that they then go back and collect their books, because we do have quite a number of books that are lying in our front offices. We have also looked at our online fingerprint verification system, so that we assist those who may have lost their IDs or who did not have an ID before, or they couldn't locate them during the time of the voter registration, so that we then issue them with the so-called temporary identification certificate during the registration date. We will also try by all means to make sure that we perform manual fingerprint verification, so that in case the system is not working at the front office, then a back office will be ready to make sure that we manually verify fingerprints and in order for the to issue the TIC for those who have applied on the day. So that system will enable us to make sure that whoever has applied for a TIC will have to receive it the same day, so that we then assist them during the registration period. Then issues of verification and handling of queries is something that we have set in each and every office across the country, wherein in case there's anyone who would like to inquire about the products that we're issuing, there are desks that have been set aside to try and assist clients with information, and also to make sure that when we verify, we also give them feedback on the spot. Then we are saying we also work closely with the logistic part, wherein we have got vehicles arranged to move across the province so that we assist everybody. Then the communication strategy during the voters registration day and the election day is in place. We are working closely with some of the stakeholders locally, wherein they are going to assist us in terms of awareness campaigns to encourage people to come and collect the IDs that are lying throughout the country. We are saying we also want to expedite and prioritize enabling documents, including manual fingerprint verification for persons from disaster areas. Suppose there's fires, floods, and whatever. We're saying if there are those challenges, please inform us so that we can send our mobile units or make arrangements to make sure that all the applications are collected and processed in no time. We are prepared to resolve challenges pertaining to death and life cases. You might have heard there are people who may then come to say, no, I'm told I'm deceased, but I'm still alive. So we'd like those people to bring all those documentation so that we can be able to assist them. There's also an issue around duplicated IDs where you find people that are sharing IDs. We're saying on that day, if there's anyone who claims to have a duplicate ID, please bring it to the force, because we have got gadgets that can be used to validate and verify the information that you might be having in your possession. The same applies to those who might be having cases of rectification and amendments. So the next issue is around our staff at high volume offices, where we were saying that we have also made arrangements. We're going to deploy staff throughout the weekend so that they then assist probably for those that are in need of their IDs, so that they can then collect them for the purpose of voter registration. We have also appointed team leaders at various provinces to do oversight. So we've got champions throughout the country that are assigned to monitor the issues of IEC of voter registration up until the closes the day. This helps us, Chairperson, because if there are still people out there that have not yet been assisted, so the champion in that province is able to alert us so that we inform our offices to continue with their operations throughout. So we have to make sure that everybody who pitch in our offices is assisted on the 2 days. So we've also established a monitoring team where they gather information electronically and they report to us in terms of the performance or any challenge which is being experienced on the ground. So those are the arrangements that we have made. We also have a youth team, including stakeholder forum members, that assist us in mobilizing communities, the public, and also to share list of those that have got IDs that were never distributed before. So the team is there in the province. We also have them in other provinces, and they help us from time to time to check if there are those people who have just entered the age of 18 years for registration purposes. If they are not registered, then they encourage them to go and register. So this has started before the 18 with the continuous work that we do on a daily basis. So in terms of information services, we've got our regional information technology officers that are scattered throughout the country. Western Cape is amongst those that have got their own RITOs, we call them RITOs, who then look into the functionality of the system and provide feedback. And where there's need for troubleshooting, they then alert us so that we then get experts to assist them. But from time to time, we do get information about cable theft and all those servers that are down due to ailing infrastructure and so on and so on. Security is always on alert. They are there. We have reported this matter to various structures. So they will also be available on the day of the voter registration period. Self-service mechanisms, we will be availing them at the moment. And they are there even on the dates that have been indicated. We have alerted them. They will be available to assist anyone who would like to contact us for information purposes. The number is flattered on the screen. It's 0800 60 11 90. And they can also go to our front offices physically so that they then verify their information. Then in terms of the details that has been prepared within the province, I think I'm now talking to the converted. I'm going to bore you with the structure of the province, the map and the geography around there. I think it's well known, but suffice to say, we are located in all the districts. So how we are structured, maybe on the next page, you'll realize that we've indicated that this is how we are structured. Our Ms. Michaels is our acting provincial manager at the moment. The provincial coordinator, as you can see, is Ms. A. van der Berg, Ms. Almin van der Berg. On the side of immigration, we've got a coordinator, Ms. R. van der Valentine, who is managing our immigration side. On the finance side, as you can see, we've got Mr. Ms. Arto. We also have various DMOs in all the districts in the province. As you can see, you've got Mr. Kaoli, you've got Mr. L. Williams, you've got Dr. M. Misiwangaka. So if you go to our footprint, maybe we should spend a minute or two so that honorable members understand exactly how we are structured. As a department, we've got more than 412 offices countrywide. Western Cape has got about 28 offices, and those offices are scattered throughout the district. As you can see, around Moitro, we've got 6 offices. Also have 4 banks. In Cape Widelands, as you can see, we also have 6 offices. These are brick and mortar kind of structures that we have. And on Garden Route, we also have 5 offices. Overbeck, we've got 4. Westcourt, we've got 5. Central Karoo, we've got 3. So if you look at them, out of the 28 offices, 24 of them are modernized, which contribute to 86%, and only 14% are not yet modernized. By modernization here, we're referring to offices that have got live capture, where a person visits for an application. You don't need to complete any paper form. You just go straight in there, present yourself, get verified. We then take your photo electronically, and then everything, if everything is green, then it's going to get transmitted to back office for back office to print your ID. And once the ID is ready, it's then shipped back to the respective offices so that the client then can receive that particular document. So there'll be an SMS. There's an SMS that which is sent to the applicant, so that when your document is ready, you'll receive that SMS to say, please come and visit us, your document is ready. So the 14% which is there are those offices that are either very small, and we are not able to put our system in there. So, but we've got alternative solutions for those, wherein the province has made arrangements either to use a mobile unit, or they then try and divert those clients to offices that have got that particular system. We also have 4 bank branches that are used to take applications for smart card and passport. Those are the limited services for now, but going forward, we would like to have all the services across the country. So those are the type of mobile units that we are having. As you can see, we've got the 6-ton, we've got the Quantums, we've got the Isuzu trucks, we also have the Sprinters. That helps us to navigate in areas where we don't have a footprint. So some of these of them, they are able to get to far-flung areas, deep rural areas, in order to service our communities. So those are the types of mobile units that we're having. We thought we should just share them with you. If we can just move to the next item that deals with the uncollected smart ID cards. So you can see we've got about 429,000 smart ID cards that are lying in offices uncollected countrywide, but Western Cape contributes about 49,634. And in our banks, we only have 40 IDs that are not collected, while our mobile units has got about 248 smart ID cards that lies there uncollected. So it's something that we would like to bring to the committee to say, let's encourage our people so that they then go and collect those documents, because those documents are there, lying in our offices, gathering dust. So we would like to encourage honorable members to then encourage clients to go and collect them. As soon as they receive the message, they should then go back and visit our office, the Office of Application, for collection purposes. We have also made arrangements, Chairperson, to resend SMSs to all these clients that have not yet collected their IDs, so that they then come and visit us for collection. So as and when they visit us, we make sure that we then provide them with a dedicated queue for collection purposes. So for all our high volume offices, we've identified counters that will be used for collections. Those counters are used to collect both passports and smart ID cards. So I thought I should share more information on that so that honorable members can also understand what is happening in our respective offices. Then the approach on uncollected IDs, we're saying we would like to have some identification of areas with high volumes of uncollected IDs, and particularly on smart ID cards. That has already been done. We've prepared a spreadsheet that indicates which areas have got high prevalence of IDs that are not being collected. And we also have offices that have got less numbers. So that smart card, that list will be shared with honorable members so that they can then see which areas are really contributing towards this. We work with stakeholders to distribute green barcoded ID books. So also we have also prepared the list of uncollected IDs, which will be communicated to all municipalities, councillors, ward committees, and the community development workers throughout the country. We're also using our mobile units so that they then also use them for distribution of IDs, in particular green barcoded IDs, because once we have got the list and we know which area requires such service, we are able to then carry those ID books through and check them against the list, and the mobile unit has provision to issue such kind of green barcoded ID books. We're saying that we also have to make sure that we enlist the services of CDWs and complete list with schedule to visit where people must collect. That list is also in place. We are saying we also have some ID campaigns at schools to target learners, particularly those that are doing grade 12 and grade 11 and 12, particularly those that are eligible to vote. This program is there. We have been working on that program for some years now. So we're saying maybe we need to reactivate it before the voter registration period, so that then learners who are eligible to vote can also use that opportunity to apply without visiting our offices. So there's a schedule for each mobile when we indicate when are we visiting some of the areas. Then, as you can see, this is a detailed breakdown in terms of uncollected smart ID cards as at 12 May 2021. As you can see, as I've indicated before, we have got about 49,573 IDs that are lying uncollected around the province. And if you go through each office, you will see that indeed we do have quite a number of IDs that are lying there uncollected. And we are just making a clarion call to say, if honorable members can just assist us in making sure that they alert their people to go and collect, so that come 27 October, we should be ready for voter registration. Then these are some of the IDs that are lying in our banks. As you are aware, in Cape Town has got about 4 banks that are connected. You've got FNB Portside, you've got Standard Bank Canal Walk, also have Standard Bank Promenade, you also have Nedbank St. George's. So those banks are connected. But I must say what we've picked is that most of the people that are applying through the banks, they are the ones who are really coming to collect their IDs, including their passports. If you look at the numbers are quite low. We only have 34 IDs that are lying in those bank branches that are not collected. So we really need, we're just making that call again to say, please visit us so that you can collect your IDs. Then those that are in mobile units are about 262. These are simple for us because what we're going to do, we are going to then resend SMSs and make arrangements with the various communities, particularly in all those wards where we visited them before, and alert them on the dates in which we'll be visiting those areas. So the 262, I think, is something that we're going to resolve within before the election date. If you look at the ID books, you'll recall that the first category was more on smart ID cards that were printed, shipped to provinces and were not collected. But we still have people who applied for green barcoded ID books then, and those people did not collect them. So we've got about 3,164 ID books that are lying in our offices. And as you can see, we've got quite a number of them in our offices. If you look at the first one, Belleville has got 101. The Khayelitsha has got 11. Wynberg has got 415. Cape Town, I believe this is Barak's district office, has got 520 IDs that are still lying there. The list goes on and on. But what we've done, we've then prioritized all the high volume offices. And then we have also make sure that we increase staff to assist those people, because to issue a green barcoded ID book once you are in an office takes less than 5 minutes. But if you are not there and you wait for the date of voter registration, then that may then take longer because everybody will be looking for an opportunity to collect. So we're just making that clarion call to say, those people who have not yet collected their ID books, please, your books are there. Please visit us so that you can then gain access to your books before the registration again. Our communication strategy, we are working closely with most of the media houses, wherein we arrange slots with them where we are open up for questions, and if there's anything that you want us to clarify, we are there. There are planned slots. I think some of them are free that are being arranged locally in Cape Town. And we also have radio bulletins to inform clients on high client volumes and redirect them to low volume offices. That one has been happening almost on a daily basis. We also have frequent updates at our local radio stations. This is in terms of our operating hours, and including the DHA services and system functionality. Then we have partners with GCIS to communicate important messages to clients. They know that GCIS often assists us in communicating the dates or the schedules in which our mobiles will be visiting, particularly our rural towns, where we have arranged outreach programs. We also try and promote our DHA e-channel platform. That's where you can apply from home at the leisure of your time. And only when the booking slot is available, then you get that particular slot, and our officials will prioritize you when you visit those particular offices, particularly the banks. And the last one is the youth and the stakeholder forums that are there to assist in terms of mobilizing the public, the distribution of uncollected IDs, and the recording of incidents that occurs as and when clients visit our offices. These are the details that we have put for ourselves. As you can see, in terms of the distribution of green barcoded ID books, we have make provision to say under garden route and what's what, Warren? Yes, you could see that we have made plans where we have approached the GCIS to assist us with radio sleds, to just remind communities to come and collect. We have also assigned a mobile truck to deal with those areas where we don't have an office, so that the truck should then move around to make sure that the distribution is made easy for those communities around the garden route area. Then those are the areas of development of deployment that we have indicated. Is Garden Road, Central Karoo District, Ladysmith, and so on and so on. So we've got details, as you can see, in terms of Central Karoo as well. We've got our Beaufort West office, wherein we have also made provision for a mobile units to visit those designated areas. And those are the areas on the other side that we have identified in terms of our visit. Then the list goes on and on up, and you could see that the last one is just the Cape Metro that we have also identified. That's what as you can see, that's a detailed list of all the districts in the province. Overbeck, that's what we have done. We'll be in Hermanus, Claremont, and Villersdorp. The West Coast, as you can see, Malmesbury will also be in Saldanha, Veldrift, and Hopefield. Cape Wineland will be. We have got an office in Paarl, Ceres, and Robertson. So, but those are the areas of the deployment on the site: the Seron, the Hoda, the Homan, and the farms. So we do have a detailed list which could be shared with honorable members, so that by the time we visit there, we'll really rally around their support, so that they then encourage clients to come and either apply or collect their documents. ID campaigns, as you can see, we have already planned for them. Those are the areas and offices. We have already spoken to the stakeholders around all the areas that you see: Prince Albert, George, Caledon, Khayelitsha, Ceres, Worcester. Then we also have our own program where we'll have mobile units that will be roving around the areas for service delivery. If you look at the far left, the far right, that column then indicates the date in which we'll be visiting those areas. The rust, as you can see, will be there on the 19th. It goes on, and if you really need to comment on that, you are free to do so. But this is the schedule that we have prepared beforehand. And if there's a need for us to adjust the dates, we are willing to do that. But in terms of our program, those are the campaigns that we have planned in the Western Cape, and we'll be running around them before the elections. If you can move to the next. Those are the identified risks and some of the mitigation strategies that have been identified. The first risk indeed is about the COVID-19, wherein once we have gotten someone who's infected in an office, then unfortunately we close that particular office and make sure that that office is deep cleaned. So we have make arrangements with most of the service providers that are appointed to make sure that on the day of the visit, should there be any infection in your front office, then those people will have to respond immediately so that the office is deep cleaned. And if you look on the mitigation strategy, we have decided that we have to maintain the 75 to 90% capacity levels, so that if something happen in that particular office, the 25% should be available to come and take over. We don't want to close the office completely. We'll also make sure that there's provision for mobile units on the day, so that if there's a problem and we are having some delays in deep cleaning that particular front office, then we'll make provision of a mobile unit to assist those who would like to collect or apply for their documents. Load shedding, something that we thought could happen on the day. But what we have done now, all our offices are installed with generators and UPSs, so that in case there's load shedding in the area, our generators should automatically kick in. We'll start with the UPS just to make sure that it pushes for a few hours. Immediately after that, the generator will kick in, so that we should not experience any system downtime on the day. Then the high client volumes and non-compliance to COVID-19 protocols. We've made arrangements with our immigration officers who will be deployed throughout the country, particularly in high volume offices, and the city of Cape Town law enforcement to assist us with non-compliance, particularly where we'll be experiencing some unruly clients. Colleagues, we we've got a stakeholder forum which is quite active in the province. They're the ones who from time to time they assist us in coordinating some of the activities around the province. So those are some of the risks and the strategies that we've put in place to make sure that nothing goes wrong on the day. And should something happens, then we'll try and use the alternatives that have been displayed. These are the officials that have been nominated and appointed to make sure that everything goes smoothly on the dates. We'll start with the acting provincial manager, Ms. Makers. As you can see, we've provided a cell phone number there, including an email, so that in case there are challenges on the ground, please feel free to contact them. All district managers, as listed below, will be available in both days, and those are their names, including their contact details and their email address. And lastly, even head office will also be deploying people to come and support the province within the 2 days for voter registration. So those are the names. I believe the chair and all the members have got their list, so that we then continue to work together. That by the time we reach the voter registration day, we would like to have an well-oiled machine to avoid any disappointment on the days. Honorable Chair, this brings me to the end of my presentation. So I would like to recommend that indeed the House look at the readiness of the department for elections. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Seeing some information that I have not seen before, and I really appreciate it from my side. Thank you for sharing this with us. It does help a lot. And I think under your stakeholders, you can include Western Cape Parliament as part of your communication strategy in getting those 50,000 people to collect the IDs, because we certainly will be, I'll be speaking to my fellow chairperson how we can do something about it, because those are 50,000 voters. And everyone of us has a vested interest to ensure that they collect the IDs. So you can include that as part of your stakeholders as well. Members, I'm going to open up for a few questions from members on the virtual platform. If anyone's got a question for our colleagues at Home Affairs in Pretoria or the colleagues in the Western Cape. See, Mr. Sigaba, your presentation also good. There's no questions from the virtual platform. I see Mr. Marais there. Honorable Marais, you can go.
Thank you so much, Chair. Yes, once again, thank you very much for presentation. I can see the Home Affairs is really active in trying to make this successful election. But this is something I would like to ask you. How did you establish which people don't have addresses? Do you make use of aerial photography and then take an estimate of how many people may live in an informal house? Or how did you get to that figure? Secondly, what do you mean by medium offices? I don't understand what is a medium office and what is a large office. And then I would like to ask you, you have given us now which offices you have where people can go to if they want to ask or collect their IDs. But I've seen some of these offices, the queues are forever. Is there no other way they can contact these offices? Do you have for the Western Cape 0800 number or 021 number where people who cannot go and collect their IDs can phone just to find out if the IDs can be posted to them, or must they collect these IDs in person and perhaps stand in a queue, especially with COVID being the fear factor, standing in the queue for hours waiting at Home Affairs offices, because I can see long queues. And most of these people, you say, their ID, some of them are over 60. I'm just asking, how can we prevent these people? It's winter now, raining. How can we help them not to have to go and stand in queues to collect their ID documents? Thank you.
Thank you, Member Murray. And before we continue, colleagues, can I perhaps give guidance? The presentation was specifically around election readiness. Now, I'm sure all of us have, myself included, have significant matters that we wish to raise with Home Affairs. But we will, when we could, invite them in the future on a presentation, on service delivery, on passports, etc., etc. But this presentation to the Department of Home Affairs was specific around election readiness, and I think a few people have received that brief, hence there's no more hands up on as I expected, but if we can perhaps, I see that few hands went up, so I thought let me just give that clear guidance, because you know me, I don't like us hijacking people for the purpose that they're not here for. So the presentation was for election readiness, so I will take the other hands if we can try and keep it on election readiness and not on matters not related to election readiness. Mr. van der Westhuizen.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my question is regarding the uncollected ID documents, and as you refer to, those are 50,000 potential voters. And obviously, I think we all want people to exercise the democratic right and not for any administrative hurdles to be in their way. And my question is, how can we and or the IEC assist the Department of Home Affairs to unite those ID documents with their rightful owners? Surely, you know, on the IEC side, they've got addresses for many of these people. I believe that political parties are moving around, and I not for one single moment want us to handle those documents, but just to remind people and say to them, you know, that there is an ID document waiting for you to be fetched at this and that Home Affairs office. And, you know, you don't need to go and stand in the queue. They will allow you to go straight to the front, or whatever the message may be. Is there any way in which our Home Affairs officials see a role for others to help them to ensure that this final step in the issuing of ID documents is overcome? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brunkhuis.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I want to ask the Home Affairs if there's any contact number or any type of a contact where we can contact Home Affairs here in the Western Cape to come out to a specific voting station in helping the people to obtain IDs for people going to the current Home Affairs branches. The lines are extremely long. It is winter, it is raining. So if the IEC can make available some contact number or email or anything, so that we can ask them and arrange with them if they can come out to a specific VD or any place it is appropriate for people to obtain the IDs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I see there's no more hands up, so I'll take my opportunity to ask my questions. The one question, Mr. Sigama and your team, I see, and previously it was done, on voter registration weekend that Home Affairs was opened. And I wanted to find, and I see on your presentation that you will be open that weekend, that is it possible, have you considered adjusting your times the week before or the weekend before voter registration weekend? Because I particularly has done in the past, and I've worked very well and also with the officers, Mitchell's Plain, but it becomes for all political parties a bit time consuming when on the day you must drive a voter to Home Affairs, do the ID, then back again or collect the ID. Whereas in my opinion, if you've done that exercise the weekend before, or extend the hours the week before, you can, all parties are allowed to allocate their resources and time on that weekend, specifically focus on voter registration. That's the first question. And then the second question on the distribution, and I see that you have your mobile units out to particular areas. Where can, similar to what Mr. Brunkes has asked, we influence? Can we email you, for example, to come out to Mitchell's Plain on a particular time and date? Is that process still, are we still allowed to influence that process? And can we do that over the next few days and weeks? And then the third question from my side, on the school drives, because I see that you've got one school in there and you've dealt with a particular principal. How do you advertise these when you come out, for example, to a particular school? So that, and is it the school principal prerogative? Are you working with the district so that we can ensure that we also assist in getting the numbers up? What would be frustrating for you and for the IECs to go to a particular school or venue and there's 5 people there, as opposed to working with a local councillor, the local MP or MPL, then you can get 50 people there. Because in all our interests, if people are registered to vote. And what was this? Oh, okay. And okay, we'll leave that for now. If you can respond to now, then we'll ask, should time allow for follow-ups. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, may I respond to the questions?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so as I've indicated, I'm not alone. I'm with the acting provincial manager in the Cape Town. Also, my coordinator, provincial coordinator, Mr. Almin van der Berg, is also that side. So I'll leave the operational issues to them, but I will largely try and respond to the strategic questions that were raised. Firstly, start with the questions that were raised by Honorable Marais. In terms of the address processes, I think that is one thing which is being dealt with by IEC. However, as Home Affairs, our database keeps the addresses as and when the person visits us for an application. So we use that, and when they try and run the interface, they then make comparison in terms of the address that the client have used when he applied for the ID, and also the one that has been used on the other side for voter registration. So that's something that they normally work on electronically. In terms of the determination of a small office, medium office, and large office, we do have a unit that deals with footprint. And there are standards that are set by government on the size of offices. They've got a unit called channel management that has got standards that looks at the population, they look at the size of the office, the square meterage that are allocated, and also the community to that which is waiting to be served in that particular locality then determines the size of the office. We are now in the process of revising our access model so that because of the growth in terms of our communities, we need to realign and make sure that we then revise our access model so that we cater for the population in some of the areas that were not catered for before. Where we don't have footprint at all, that's where now we have tried to use our mobile units that I've displayed before. And in terms of birth registration and other services, we have signed our MOU with the Department of Health, where we're trying now to make sure that we extend our footprint in most of the health facilities countrywide. You might be aware that South Africa has got more than 1,445 health facilities with maternity wards. So we've got a staggered plan that has been presented and approved by the department, which will run for a period of 5 years. And we've started that last year. This year we'll be continuing with the same program. up until such time when we have ramped up all the health facilities so that we then register birth at source. And that will also free us from the long queues that you see in most of our front offices. So it's a long-term plan, but we hope that will assist us in the near future. So there was an issue around having special collection for those that are not able to visit us, or to prevent a COVID-19 and long queues. Yes, I will answer it in two ways. Firstly, those that have applied for green barcoded ID books. Yes, the local office will make special arrangements to visit them. They will prepare the list of all those people who have got green barcoded ID books. Through the assistance of the Western Cape government, they will be able to assist us in terms of the location of where those people reside, and then distribution arrangements could be made to make sure that those IDs reaches those people in those particular areas. But those who have applied for smart ID cards, unfortunately, the system does not allow us to hand over a smart card without verifying the fingerprints. So it means that if the person has applied in Barak Street office, then we then encourage that person to visit us there. But what we've made with arrangement that have been made in an office itself was that anyone who's 60 years and above is not supposed to queue. We will prioritize you. We've got a dedicated counter for collection. So it means that all the elderly people, as soon as they are identified, they will then be allowed to go straight to a counter for collection. Then we do that for both IDs and smart ID cards. Should there be maybe an increase in terms of numbers, we will make sure that there's a mobile unit placed closer to that office so that we redirect the queue for collection. So any other application will have to follow the normal process. But for collection purposes, we have put measures in place so that all those who are geared up for collection will be prioritized to try and fast track the collection in our front offices. Then there was a comment from Honorable van der Westhuizen to say, in terms of the uncollected IDs, how can IC and the Western Cape government assist in terms of spreading the message and making sure that people are aware for the collection? I think we really appreciate that. It's something that we have always been striving for, to say we need to work together. We also have a stakeholder forum committee in the province, which then identifies those areas and assists us in terms of the location. And we also encourage that through the coordination of the province, probably they can assist us to make sure that we then push those numbers towards those forums. That will also help in making sure that we reduce the numbers of uncollected IDs throughout the province. Yes, we do welcome that. Our coordinator will make sure that there's provision in all those meetings, that we then assist in making sure that we reduce the numbers. Then there was an issue around the contact details for someone who can assist us when we collect IDs. Mr. Michaels remains the contact person as the acting provincial manager. I've shared the numbers and the email address, also the numbers of Ms. Almin van der Berg. Those are the two officials that could be contacted, so that should there be anything, then we know we use them as our focal point, and those are people who then coordinate. And should there be a need for us to intervene at back office, then we always support them. Then there was a fair comment around Home Affairs opening an office a week prior to voter registration to avoid this rush during the voter registration weekend. I think we do welcome that comment. We look into that, but that does not stop our province from making their own arrangements. We also have a plan in place wherein our youth normally they then put their plan together, wherein they set a program which will then talk to the build up towards voter registration. So I will then allow talk to Ms. Michaels so that she then check their program and align with what the honorable member has raised. I think that's a good point that we need to consider to avoid stampede and issues of stampede on the date of voter registration. Honorable Chair, the issue around the distribution process and the issue of us advertising for school programs, I would like to leave it back to Ms. Michaels as well as Almin on the other side, so that they share the details on how they work around that part. With your permission, Chair, may I then request the acting PM to answer those few questions that I did not touch on. Thank you.
Ms. Michaels.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you. Can I just once again thank you, Chairperson, for enriching our communication strategy in indicating that indeed the Western Cape Parliament will assist the Department of Home Affairs within the communication strategy to enable us to get the message out there that we have quite a number of uncollected IDs in preparation for voters to be able to register. In relation also to, I know DDG has already touched in terms of an answer on the question of Honourable Van der Westhuizen and yourself, Chairperson. Yes, indeed. I just want to say in addition, we have still got the room to work on our mobile schedules for towards the end of June as well as July. So we would gladly be able to assist where possible in terms of scheduling of our mobile units there where it's required. With regards to Honourable, I think there was also from Chairperson's side, as DDG alerted, the schools, how do we go about in having mobile outreaches to schools? Now, the mobile units are based within specific offices, and those offices would have a list of all high schools where grade 11s or grade 12s are at school, and they would engage those school principals directly. Those school principals would indicate the dates for mobile units then to schedule. This is, of course, in consideration of their own programs that they offer for these learners. And on that basis, we then get numbers from their side that informs us as to how many dates we need to schedule as per the availability of the school. The schools assist also greatly because, of course, you would know that for first applications, we also require a parent to be present. So that parent is invited. So they really do a lot of preparation for us to be able to visit on the day and have a successful application with the mother or father present, as well as the other supporting documentation that is required. I think I've covered, DDG has covered all of the questions. And yeah, the other one was just the scheduling, which I've indicated, DDG has indicated myself and Ms. Van der Berg as entry points to be able to enrich our schedules and affirm it for hopefully June and July. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much for the response. I see that I will be in communication with you, and I'm sure that several other members will be keen to see how we can work around that mobile units. And I see another hand went up, Member Brankes.
Thank you, Chair. I hear that the Home Affairs said that they made the contact details available. Where do we get the contact details? Thank you, Chair.
We will give it to you. It was in the presentation, but we'll make sure I'll forward you again.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sigama, Ms. Michaels, and your team. If there's any further requests for information, we will send through something in writing. Again, we do appreciate that you came out this morning. We will invite you in the future for other matters. And before those members are raised, I want to thank you very much for coming through this morning, and you are excused.
Thanks very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and members.
Thank you. Mr. Hendricks and your team, are you still in the meeting or have you left us already?
Thank you, Chair. I was in the meeting. I was very interested to hear the presentation from Home Affairs. I will certainly follow up with Ms. Michaels and her team as well, so that we can also from our side through the MPLCs also coordinate some of those dates, etc. that Home Affairs was indicating. But thank you once again, Chair. May I also now be excused?
Before you leave, Mr. Hendricks, thank you very much and for your comprehensive presentation. We'll certainly work together over the next 8 months to the 27th of October. I'm sure you'll hear a lot from all members in this House. And yes, I think once you and Home Affairs have fine-tuned your date, please also let us know so that we can work together and ensure that we get the province on the map as the successful registrations, but also everybody get the IDs and our elections are free and fair as in the past. Before I go, Mr. Hendricks, I see Mr. van der Westhuizen's hands went up. Mr. van der Westhuizen, with a question, or there's something we can leave for the recommendation after Mr. Hendricks has left?
Chair, I would just like, before the officials leave, just on a personal note, say thank you very much. I do know that their task is not an easy one, and I do know that the committee will probably, as a resolution, also thank them. But as a personal note, I would like to really appreciate what they are doing and the challenges under which they often need to work. And I think I can say this on behalf of all the members, that we pledge our support for them to have, again, a free and fair election. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Chair, I also want to congratulate the department and especially Mr. Hendricks. I know him from a very long time ago as a son of Reverend Hendricks, formidable political figure, and I want to thank him for following in his dad's footsteps. Just want to say to him to keep in mind my plea for Afrikaans next time they make a presentation, but what he did say in English, he said very well. Thank you. I want to ask the chair to excuse me. I've heard enough English for the day. I will be leaving the meeting now. Thank you so much.
Also, vorentoe praat oor hoe ons amptenare hanteer in vergaderings. En ons weet en ons respek ons almal se moedertaal, maar dit is iets wat ons as komitee moet regkry en nie amptenare blameer nie. Thank you, Mr. Michaels. You are excused.
Thank you very much, members. Thank you, Chairperson. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, members. We can start with our resolutions. Mr. America, can I hand over to you to start with the first side of the presentation?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if our members have specific resolutions, but we will certainly invite the IEC again to our committee for further presentations. But one of the elements that needed to be done at that particular meeting is a demonstration of the new voter management devices, how it operates in real time, and also just to introduce it to us so that we could have a sense of what the capabilities of this new device is. But again, as a committee, we will extend an invitation to all members once we invite IEC back to our standing committee. But from our side, we want to thank you also for your sort of role in driving this joint meeting, and we will certainly collaborate with yourself also in terms of when the IEC is re-invited or invited back again to our standing committee. from my side, I'd like to thank the officials who made it possible for us to have this meeting today. I don't know if there's any from our members, Honourable van der Westhuizen, if you have any specific resolutions that we can take forward.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Honourable Chair, I think I would like to propose that we first officially, also by way of resolution, thank the officials from both the IEC and the Department of Home Affairs for their presentations, and that we pledge our continued support for them in achieving their goals as both the IEC and the Department of Home Affairs. And then, Chair, I think we should also, from our side, just say that we've acknowledged that a lot of preparatory work has already been done in terms of the elections, which we believe at this stage will take place later this year, and that in terms also of the COVID protocols, that we acknowledge the challenges, but that we also have observed up to this far that those protocols, in our opinion, have been well managed by the IEC during their by-elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. Honourable Brinkhuis, I see you have indicated.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, also, yes, I just want to take the opportunity to thank the Honourable Member Ricardo also for organizing this joint meeting with IEC and the Home Affairs. And yes, we know that they have a tremendous task at hand. And yes, but we want to thank them and congratulate them for the work that the great work that they are doing. And just in terms of a resolution, yes, just an idea that we know that a lot of our people, they have cell phones. So I see this one device that the IEC came up with. I think it's called the voter management device, something like that. If they could possibly think of a possible application on the phone to do all those work that they want to do through that device, maybe what do you call it, using an application on the phone could also be of assistance with that kind of work that the IEC want to do. So yes, again, thank you to the Western Cape Parliament for calling this joint meeting, and thank you to the IEC also and to the Home Affairs. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Brinkhuis. Honourable Kenza, hand back to you to close the meeting or call for resolutions.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think from Home Affairs, if we'll just need to get a coordinating mechanism to get the dates for the mobile handover. And I think I'll just ask our members, because all of us are from different constituencies, if we will just send out, Chairperson, email to all the members from to say that any particular dates or that was not in Home Affairs portfolio, sorry, in the presentation, that they would like people to come out to their constituencies with the mobile units, and we can certainly work with Home Affairs and arrange that. That's for the new applications for IDs or for people to collect the IDs, and we will work with Home Affairs to ensure that becomes a reality. And I think that's something we'll do from our side. Other than that, thank you, Chairperson, for raising this session as well, and to all the members for participating in this meeting. This meeting is therefore adjourned.
Thank you. We'll do it again. Bye.
So we can do a joint. Okay. we get all those dates from Omake as well ago. So we can go, that will work very well. Yeah. But okay, see ya.